Shall we start? Yes, okay, so let's start. It's a pleasure for me, on behalf of the University of Girona, Josep Vilalta, Director of the Global University Network for Innovation, and Eeva Furman, thank you for being here with us, Director of the Environment Policy Center of the Finnish Environment Institute, Mario Diethart, representing the leadership team of the Copernicus Alliance, and Josep Calvo, Vice Rector of Forest Strategic Projects of the University of Girona. And attendees of this first session of the conference and friends, it's a pleasure. Welcome. On behalf of the University of Girona, it's a pleasure, as I said, to welcome you to this webinar. It's a webinar of a cycle of online sessions on sustainable development goals and on the different tools we can provide ourselves with in order to meet the global expectations in relation to the United Nations Agenda 2030. This initiative, which has the support of the Global University Network for Innovation, and was born from the initiative of the sectoral hubs of the University of Girona, aims to offer a reflection on the mechanisms that academic institutions must put in place to face the challenges of the immediate future, which today demands urgent attention more than ever. Not only as a result of the idea that advocates a sustainable society, but because of the health and environmental emergency, among many other aspects that we are living, and which has upturned many of the parameters that were in force until now, and that puts the need for forceful solutions on the front line. In the conferences that we are inaugurating today, topics to be analyzed include the access to development tools, the involvement of science with society, an issue that is now more alive than ever, how we communicate the objectives of the program, artificial intelligence and its importance in relation to the conservation of the planet, sustainability related to food and tourism, and also a reflection that wants to be of a global nature on health and equity in the context of the pandemic that we are all suffering. This conference is framed within both the commitment of the University of Girona to the sectoral hubs of the university, as well as in the awareness of the university itself with regard to the 2030 agenda, so that the strategic plans and the daily activity of the institution are undertaken considering this commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. The hubs represent a boost for technology transfer and innovation in order to form networks with society in the areas that the University of Girona considers priority. We are talking about areas such as water, tourism, food, communication and culture, health, technology, heritage, social cohesion, robotics, all aspects that generate synergies within the university and its research groups, and that allow the involvement of economic and social agents, civil society, and the public institutional sectors. Regarding the rankings that value the performance of the Sustainable Development Goals, the University of Girona is in the top 100 worldwide, according to the Impact Ranking of 2020. And it stands out for its quality of education, 13th position, in the section of sustainable cities and territories, actually in the 24th position, and in clean energies, 40th position. Likewise, in the Green Metrics Sustainability Ranking, in this ranking, the UDG is in the 93rd position in the world. Therefore, this conference that we are starting today, beyond considering sectoral factors, advocates a global, unitary, and interdisciplinary vision that will surely allow us to catch a glimpse of a future with more social involvement and answers to many of the issues on which the universities are focusing their efforts. Therefore, I would like to thank all you to the involvement of the organizers. I would like to thank the involvement of the organizers and all the experts who will participate in these online webinars. Thank you to all of you. Networking, collaboration, interdisciplinarity, sharing expertise, and socializing knowledge are the tools to develop innovative proposals that allow us to improve as a humanity and face the great challenges that the immediate future brings to us. To thank you all for coming to be present to this webinar and for your contribution. Thank you very much on behalf of the University of Girona. And now at this point, I give the floor to Josep Vilalta to present the webinar. Josep, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rector. Thank you very much to the Universitat de Girona, to the Rector Joaquim Salvi, the Vice Rector Josep Calbó, and also especially to Elisabeth for the organization of this series of webinars. I'll be with you trying to moderate all the session. I'll try to make general statements now and then give the floor to the panelists, the two panelists. Welcome everybody to this series of UDG Innovation for SDGs, Inspirational Tools Towards Sustainability Challenges, an event organized by the sectoral hubs of the University of Girona, as the Rector said a moment ago, in collaboration with the Global University Network for Innovation. During 2 weeks, starting today, different speakers will cover various topics all related with SDGs and its achievements. The first part of the series starts with webinars related to sustainability and development, co-creation, and responsible research and innovation, projects and communication and advocacy for the Agenda 2030. The sessions will be covering more specific topics and will be presenting in the coming days, representing a vast array of disciplines and challenges. Each presentation will provide ideas to promote knowledge transfer to overcoming obstacles regarding the attainment of the SDGs. So thus, we thank you for attending this webinar, and we encourage you to participate in as many sessions as possible, since your knowledge and perspective are most welcome and wanted. If I'm not wrong, at this moment, more or less 69 people is connected. So thank you so much to all of you from so many different countries. So thank you to all of you for being with us. Before I give the floor to the two panelists, let me spend 5 minutes, not more, to present briefly the Global University Network for Innovation, GUNI. GUNI was established 20 years ago, promoted by UNESCO and the United Nations University and the Technical University of Catalonia, as I mentioned 20 years ago, and is very much focusing on SDGs on the last years. So yes, please, Sawen. So here you have just a short presentation of GUNI. We are at this moment one of the world-leading think tanks on higher education policy and management. At this moment, our network covers 250 members from 80 countries, including universities, UNESCO chairs, and some research centers. And as I mentioned just a moment ago, we are becoming a reference institution in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs in higher education. At this moment, since 2014, the Secretariat and Presidency of the GUNI is on the Public Association of Catalan Universities. So please, Sawen, now. Here you have our mission and values of GUNI. We are trying to foster the role of higher education in society. So we are very much dealing with all these aspects relating higher education with society. Because of that, we are working, for instance, on topics like the Agenda 2030, on research and responsible research and innovation, co-creation of policies, engagement of universities with society, and so on. And here you have our main values. For instance, defense and promotion of education, of course, sustainable development, international cooperation and democratization of education and science, or university autonomy and academic freedom. So please, següent, sisplau. Here you have our objective, our main objectives. So we try to generate and share open knowledge on higher education policy and management around the world. We promote the knowledge society. We support institutions and governments around the world for the advancement of higher education and scientific research and innovation. We promote, as I mentioned, the development of the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. And we also encourage academics and scientific diplomacy to promote multilateralism and international cooperation. So please, següent, sisplau. Yes, as I mentioned, GUNI is working hard with Agenda 2030 in relation with higher education institutions and in relation with research. And here you have some activities that we are carrying on the last years. Since 2016 year, we were promoting different international conferences on SDGs. So if I'm not wrong, we celebrate 2 international conferences on the last years, both in Barcelona. We are promoting on the knowledge production. So we are publishing reports and studies around the Agenda 2030. We have a GUNI group of experts from around the world. So we gather experts and analyze different topics related with sustainable development. And we also have some different activities within our local network, which is a CUP, the Catalan Association of Public Universities. So here you have different activities more on the local side, Social Responsibility Commission, a website with examples and best practices on SDGs, and also specific questions like service learning and education for sustainable development, among others. So please, the next one. And I would like to share with you our last activity, because of course, we are a part of the UNESCO activities. We are glad to announce you that next October, we will be celebrating the 3rd UNESCO World Higher Education Conference in Barcelona. As you maybe know, the last 2 conferences was established in Paris UNESCO, and the 3rd World Higher Education Conference will be based in Barcelona because of the GUNI involvement with UNESCO. And here you have the link, the website link, where you can find more information about this. This is going to be a really important conference covering all member states of the world. And because of that, we invite you to participate in this coming International World Conference on Higher Education in Barcelona. So that's, I think there is a last one. Here you have some, let's say, information. So we are very open to work with you to receive any question about our network. So thank you so much. Just before introduce today's speakers, let me share with you some, let's say, practical information for the session. A brief reminder about the session. The session will be recorded, it's being recorded. So once the session is finalized, it will be uploaded to the event's website and will be shared with those who could not attend the event. So everything will gonna be on the website. Regarding questions at the end of the 2 panelists' presentations, please, you can write on the Q&A section here on the web at any time during the session. We'll be recording, we'll be reading it. Q&A will take place at the end of the presentations. So please make sure your name is written correctly so we can address you at the end of the presentation. If you wish to inform about the event via social media, we encourage you to do so by using the hashtags that will be posted in the screen. So now let's go and introduce today's topics and speakers. Under the title of Transforming Towards Sustainable Development, the diverse and inspiring presentation of Eeva Furman and Mario Diethart will highlight emerging opportunities as well as unveil challenges to reflect upon and pave the way for future and innovative projects. So the first speaker is Mrs. Eeva Furman. Thank you very much, Eeva, for being with us. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to listen your so interesting ideas. As you maybe know, Professor Eeva Furman is the director of the Environment Policy Center of the Finnish Environment Institute, SIKE, in Finland. And well, his curriculum is very extensive, but I just mentioned one thing. She's the chair of Finland's Sustainable Development Expert Panel, and she was one of the 15 of the independent group of scientists who wrote the United Nations Global Sustainable Development Report in 2019. So her speech is titled, if I'm not wrong, Eeva, says Transforming Towards Sustainable Development. So thank you very much, Eeva, again. The floor is yours, and your presentations, I think it's going to be around 30 minutes, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
Eva. Thank you very much for this, and it's a pleasure also for me always to interact with Guni and to be able to, in a way, do the starting here. And so happy to join also with the University of Girona, and that the rector Salvi is here present himself. That is fantastic. So I will open now my presentation, and then we'll get started. I hope I'll get it here. Share, and then yeah, can you see my presentation?
That's perfect.
Yes.
Excellent, yeah. So yes, so I'm trying to come up with these tools that Rector was raising also, and which is the whole heading of this seminar on implementing the Agenda 2030. And about Guni and also about the presentation, I must say that the picture that Joseph Vilata just showed with a huge number of people, I was one of those, and it was exactly a year ago, March, when we were already kind of stepping into the COVID pandemic in Europe. And I have been watching that picture several times and reminding me now when it's we are closing again here in Finland, and looking how close we could stand only a year ago. So when we look at our planet, it is a fantastic place, but we are not treating it in a very good way. Humans have had a very short history on this planet, if we take in a bigger perspective, and during that time we have been able to develop our well-being in many different ways. And for example, this picture really shows how things were when I was 5 years old. We had very big difference between developing and developed countries, and today we are in the kind of situation when actually the situation is much more equal, except that the COVID has again thrown us further away from each other. But there have been a cost on this development of health and kind of economic well-being that we have in our societies. And the price has been that our inequalities are during the last few years again been rising, especially within countries, but also lately because of the COVID, also between countries, and climate change, biodiversity loss are part of our everyday discussions. So we have really systemic challenges that are not that new. They were dealt with already in 1980s when the Agenda 2020 was developed, and the idea was to bring environment, society and economy together. And it led, unfortunately, to a situation where the economy was seen very important for our well-being and the well-being of the planet, and also the whole innovation and education system was very much built on building innovation to develop the economy, to be able to develop a thriving society. But it didn't really lead up, because many of them had its prices, and so now we are in a situation where we are in a way pressed both by the economic challenges as well as the societal challenges, and we are now in a situation where we need to innovate those ways how we can find a balance between these two, how we can actually transform economy from being a goal for health, well-being, to a tool for well-being. And this graph describes very well what is the problem. We very strongly see that actually the natural sphere is the most important one, and that the social sphere is more important one, and that we need to in a way evolve those targets and goals and support them that are supporting those elements. But in reality, in the Anthropocene, where we are living, the stage where humans are actually dominating in everywhere in the world, we are in a situation where we need to solve them so that the social targets are hit to make a contribution to the natural sphere, and vice versa. And we need the connection between these all, and the connection with people, with peace, and with things what we are doing right now in this to discuss and develop more. And most importantly, we are very much in the heart of the systems that are actually delivering the well-being in our society. Today they are very unsustainable, and we need to find a new way how to move forward. And so actually we know that there are 4 different issues which are highly interlinked between them, but also we know that if we don't go forward in each of these, the whole agenda is not going forward, because we have such a high connection between the two. So here is, for example, a picture that many of you have seen maybe, which shows that if we are making advancement in one goal, it has a strong impact also on other goal. And there is lots of white, which means that we don't know about this. This was done a couple of years ago, but I don't think we have gone that much further. But anyway, this really elucidates that we have trade-offs, those orange colors, ones that we need really to deal with. And then we also need to recognize that there's lots of co-benefits and save the money of governments, of individuals, of communities, and of businesses, and that we are highly interconnected. This has changed. We think always it's been always there, but it has become really huge thing lately. And below there you can see a picture that really shows how the arrows are bringing the goods to one place to the other, causing land use changes. And we have many different actors as well in our societies that either hinder the development. Those are the ones that are winners of today, and we often say that it's the businesses that are hindering, or it is something like universities, but it's also the states that are doing it, the different countries. So there are many who are getting benefit from today, and it's of course for this, it is risky to move forward. And now the idea is to bring forth that why it is beneficial for example, universities and higher education to actually transform also to the new stage, and being in forefront, it will be beneficial. And we have the losers that become bigger, and they are losers of today's situation, and they are the losers that we don't have in this picture, which are actually the young ones who are getting angrier and angrier. And you have lots of students who are demanding from the universities and from the education that they want a really sustainable way go forward. Now when we are looking at what actually should be taught and how the curricula should be built, we shouldn't in a way stick only to the simple questions, and simple, I don't mean anything negative. We have questions that we can answer sort of simply, but then we have these wicked problems that the systems changes are really requiring, that are contested, and where we really need to also work with the societies in our scientific work. So what is the way forward? And in the Global Sustainable Development Report that was mentioned in the beginning, we really see that we need to go forward with systems change. And we have systems, 6 systems in particular, but many countries have different ones, but these are ones that are really core in every country that we need to change. We need well-being and capabilities that are built in such a way that they are sustainable also from the ecological and from the injustice perspective. We need to change our economies so that it's more built on the circular economy, that the different flows from different parts of the world are actually just in both ends, and food systems that are so crucial for us everywhere in the world, but also how we actually develop energy, but more so how the energy systems or the services are functioning in a sustainable way. And then urbanization, like Girona is very strong on this, and then the global environmental commons, which is actually the basis. We can think about this, that the global environmental commons are the basis, and the well-being and capabilities are on the kind of the lid of it all. And then who should work? So we need to work together, and not only work together, but in a way come up with a joint agenda. Now we have the Agenda 2030, but in each country have a joint understanding which way we want to go, so that actually the economy and governance and collective action and science and technology are supporting each other. The finance and economy sector very much needs a strong governance that gives it directions, that helps how to build strategy for the business as well, as you know, in the universities. And this is then the roadmap, which really shows that we can't really, in a way, think that something is more important than the other of these systems, but we need to do them at the same time, and they are also interlinked in between. So it sounds really complicated, but it's not, because we have the communities already now, and if not, they are evolving at the moment. So coming to a more sustainable way is one way to go forward. And this one really shows that how you actually do it in practice. This is again from Nigeria, where there are a case where we need a more sustainable way of getting things from the fields to the markets and into delivery everywhere in the world. You need certain technical but also social innovations here that need to be developed, and then we need businesses providing also the market access and the governance, making sure that there are some social protection floors so that you don't fall through if you take a risky way of forward. So now we have been living in this COVID stage exactly a year, of course a little bit more, but in practice it has been really the core in our life. And here COVID is a very typical case of actually sustainable development. And so when we are actually now taking the COVID pandemic and the COVID crisis into the next level, it's really important that we take the systemic approach to that as well, and keep it connected to that. And it's very crucial in Europe at the moment when we are making the decisions where we put the funding of taking the economy back on track, and also the social security systems. So now still some issues about the knowledge. I call it value chain usually. how we can actually move forward. And it all starts from the very early stage. It starts from the daycares, and it starts even earlier, because that's where the many of our long-term impacts are affected at this stage. And it's very much the sustainability education is here. I mean, if we think about the universities, you are teaching the teachers for the universities, for the daycares and for the school system. And so here is some issues what we really need in the education and in the learning. So it's not education, but it's learning what we are aiming for. So we need to make sure that we are coming more like solving problems, sort of practical issues for the children, but also the very core at the moment that has been rising now within the last 12 months is to understand the human nature connection. And here I don't mean that we go out and enjoy the nature, but to understand how it is really embedded in our well-being and in actually with the risk or security in our lives. And COVID is one example of it. Health issues that are in that as well, and our food system, and so on and so on. So the higher education is very much of changing the actually the whole curricula, the whole way how actually the universities and show to the students what is their value, and that they stand also behind this. And so the thinking is that all planning, decision making and budgeting should be built on that. And at the moment, for example, cities are very much learning how to budget on climate change issues, how you can do climate budgeting, but also in the universities you can look through the whole agenda for that and build the whole structure on that. And then of course teaching, many universities are now trying, starting with the education system, that the first year obligatory course is on sustainability transformations and sustainable development. So here are just some more of those issues that are already raised, that open science is part of it, because it links us with the rest of the world. And then about science, just a few words. I would like to say firstly that sustainability science is really a major thing now happening, and the global science organizations are very much behind this. We really need to learn how to carry out science that is supporting this Agenda 2030 implementation. We need to harness the knowledge that we already have in our universities and other innovation hubs. But we also need to make sure that the whole world is part of this, because today the situation is quite different. There are lots of white places where research is done and the quality is not updated, and we need to develop links from different parts of the world and learn together, because there's lots to be learned also in the developed countries on this. So we need a moonshot for sustainability science. Finally, just a couple of words, if I have some time, I would just say that in Finland we are very much implementing this. We have at the moment a kind of government that is very supportive to this, and my institute has taken, actually, which is an environmental institute, it has taken sustainability transformations as its mission. So we can look at different steps that we need to move forward, which has all the different levels from science to step up into then finally having all our decision making based on that. And then finally, just to say that this is very much about learning new routines, and science and education is something that can in a way foster that, but also we don't need to be part of everything, but we can in a way enable these things to happen. And just 3 different examples from Finland. This is a system where we work together with different businesses and also with municipalities in building new kind of green areas and green area systems, so that it motivates for physical mobility in our everyday, also in our way towards school. Second one is about dealing with food systems and building connection with the businesses, how they can actually contribute to the transformation towards a more sustainable food systems, and helping them up on that, working with schools and working with school children. And finally, this is a project on orchestrating systems impact, where we are trying really to develop a way of having a dialogue in the society, where we discuss ways how to move forward and really work with children and work with different stakeholders in the societies. So this was my messages today. I hope you got something new. It's very much what I've talked before, but I hope there were some people who learned something new from that. So thank you very much for your attention. And I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eeva. We always learn things with your presentation, so thanks a lot for being with us today in this webinar. If you agree, we will make the questions and answers session at the end, after the second presentation by Mario Diethart. So thank you, Eeva, and we'll join you in a moment. So we start with the second presentation by Mr. Mario Diethart. He's working in the field of education for sustainable development as part of the Regional Center of Expertise at Graz, Styria, and as network manager of the Copernicus Alliance, as many of you know, the European Network on Higher Education for Sustainable Development. So thank you very much, Mario, for being also with us. If I'm not wrong, your presentation is called Education for Sustainable Development. And as I mentioned before to Eeva, you will have around 30 minutes for your speech. So thank you very much again for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation and friendly introduction. I will share my screen now. I hope you can see it. So it's my pleasure to be here with you today and give this presentation on behalf of the Copernicus Alliance leadership team, that is namely our president, Ann Zimmermann, and executive director, Ingrid Muller. I am the network manager of the Copernicus Alliance, and I'm also working at the RC Graz Styria, that is part of the University of Graz. I will introduce these institutions in a bit more detail later, but first I want to jump right into the topic of this presentation, that is education for sustainable development. So I think we have some overlappings with Eva's presentation. So I think at the end it's good that we complement each other and are somehow in the same line. I won't start with what sustainable development is. We all know that. In fact, it's quite the contrary of what we are witnessing worldwide at the moment. We are in the middle of a pandemic. There are multiple challenges waiting in line, or better to say they are already ongoing in the background, such as biodiversity loss, climate change, for example. So how can we address these global challenges and shift towards a more sustainable way of living? Political agreements, financial investments, they all turned out not to be really successful in that sense. Also, technology probably won't save us. So what we need is a change of mindset, a transformation towards sustainability on a global scale. And the question is, how can we get there? You might know the famous quote that is attributed to Albert Einstein, saying that we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that we used when we created them. So again, the question is, how can we change this way of thinking? And you may guess the answer, one of the answers. It's education for sustainable development, ESD. The United Nations early on recognized education as a key element for achieving sustainable development. Without going too much back in history, I only want to mention the Millennium Development Goals that were published in 2000, the United Nations Decade on Education for Sustainable Development from 2005 to 2014, and currently the Agenda 2030 with its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. All these initiatives highlight education as one key lever for achieving sustainable development. So now let's have a look at what ESD actually means. In the preparation for this presentation, I stumbled across another presentation that was entitled, "Why is everything sustainable except our education?" And I think there's a point to this. Nowadays, many things are labeled as being sustainable, whether they are or not. And the education system, however, is rarely addressed as being sustainable. And I think that is so for a reason. Much of what we learn today in school and university are facts that we memorize for the short term and forget afterwards. So this is how the system works. However, ESD aims to be different. I would like to share this definition you can see here that emphasizes above all two things. It explicitly includes children and adults, thus making clear that learning is a lifelong process that never stops. And secondly, it emphasizes the competence of thinking and acting rather than the sole acquisition of knowledge. In this context, I want to quote Einstein again. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of minds to think. Of course, it is important to include key topics in teaching and learning, such as climate change, biodiversity laws, or sustainable consumption. But more important it is to learn how to think critically, to imagine future scenarios, and to make decisions in a collaborative way. By understanding this, it becomes clear that ESD cannot be an add-on to the existing system, but rather demands a transformation of the whole system. And I want to share a second definition of ESD by Singer Brodowski. I give you a second to read it. This definition highlights participation in and reflection on societal processes of transformation as a goal of ESD. And this already points in the direction of transformative learning and transdisciplinarity, which we will address later on. With these definitions in mind, I want to shift now the focus to higher education for sustainable development. The higher education sector has a huge responsibility and power to educate future decision makers. While universities are supposed to be future oriented, they are at the same time rather locked into a rigid structure. Faculties, departments, disciplines have grown over centuries into what they are today, and that is very much separated from each other, very divided. Furthermore, there exist hierarchies and complex power structures within university, and all this makes the academic system quite resistant to change. And in addition, this thinking in disciplines makes it difficult, if not impossible, to address complex issues of sustainability. To make that even more clear, imagine 3 persons observing the same object. The man on the left, let's say he's from natural sciences, recognizes a yellow rectangle. The woman in the middle, let's assume she's from social sciences, sees a red circle. And the pragmatic person to the right, representing society as a whole, recognizes a can of beer. So in short, they each only see one perspective and what they are trained for, or even simply what they want to see. If we now take an interdisciplinary approach and let these three persons open up their minds, their assumptions might be closer to reality. And this is what we aim for in education and in research. It's all about taking down walls and working together between disciplines within one institution, but also between different institutions. And at this point, I want to introduce the Copernicus Alliance in more detail. The Copernicus Alliance is the European network on higher education for sustainable development. So the goal is clear, ESD. In fact, the Copernicus Alliance addresses two of the SDGs, number 4, quality education, and number 17, partnerships for achieving the SDGs. In the Copernicus Alliance network, currently we have over 20 higher education institutions, mostly universities, but also NGOs and individual members. They are spread all over Europe, as you can see on the map. And we consider them to be forerunners in the field of sustainability. Without going into too much detail at this point about what we are doing and what the benefits of being a member in the Copernicus Alliance are, I might just say it's all about bringing people together and foster exchange. We do that by developing joint project proposals on EU level, for example, by organizing events. We usually host a conference each year, the last two being held virtually. So already in 2019, before the pandemic hit, we started hosting our first virtual conference. So we are also exploring innovative and more sustainable ways of conferencing. Furthermore, we share news of our members on our website, through our newsletter, and we also provide financial support to our members through what we call microfunds. If you want to know more about what the Copernicus Alliance is doing, you are of course very welcome to contact us or visit our website, and contact details will be provided on the last slide. So now coming back to the actual topic of ESD, what we see in our network and what we encourage our members to do is to leave old structures behind and be innovative. That means opening up and let go of privileges, in the sense that universities are the place where knowledge is created in offices and closed laboratories and then shared with the outside world. So that's not the way to go. Research and society should work together. That is also expressed in the Agenda 2030. Sustainable development is a vision and the goal, and must be defined by the whole of society rather than by science alone. And I believe that is one of the key messages of this presentation. Interdisciplinarity is actually not enough. What we need is a transdisciplinary approach that involves society in the process of knowledge creation. In the following, I want to present a few examples from the Copernicus Alliance network that we consider good practices in that direction. At the same time, I want to emphasize that this is only a small sample, and there are, of course, a lot of more interesting initiatives going on all around, also from University of Girona, for example. I know that they are doing great things. So the first example I want to give is the Transformative Innovation Lab, in short, the TIL, which is the result of a project between the Wuppertal Institute, the Leuphana University of Lüneburg, and the Freie Universität of Berlin. as the title of the project that you can read out here already suggests, the TIL is a program in which students are introduced to systems thinking and transdisciplinary approaches and methodologies in the form of hands-on practice in real-world labs. And I want to highlight the TIL, especially because it is a concept that can be integrated into existing systems and programs. And therefore, it is practically applicable to any university. The practical and experimental approach of the TIL aims to close the gap between theory and practice, which is a common issue known at the university context. Students should acquire the knowledge, but also the skills, values, and mindsets that empower them to contribute to sustainable development. I have emphasized the importance of competencies already earlier. So the TIL format empowers students to develop such key competencies with which they can act as change agents. These key competencies are strategic competence, systems thinking, anticipatory, normative, and interpersonal competencies. I won't go in detail here, but I want to actually recommend the handbook about the TIL that really describes the whole approach very detailed and step by step. And also this handbook is linked at the end of the presentation. However, what I want to introduce here is the scheme of the TIL. The TIL runs over a period of 2 semesters and is designed to take place in the 3rd or 4th semester of a master's degree program. So at the end of the master's degree with already rather advanced students, the students work alone or in small teams and conduct transformative research projects that can also be their master thesis. While doing that, they are mentored at each step of the way by peers and lecturers. In the image, you can see the different phases of the TIL in the colored circles from 0 to 7. And in the gray colored background, you see the event formats. At first, it starts with a kick-off retreat over several days that marks the academic, group, and individual beginning of the transformative research projects. Then there are exchange sessions on topics related to where the students are in the process. They take place both as in-person events, including also students from different universities, and as online formats. After that, there is a reflection seminar that takes place when the experiments are already ongoing, that aims to analyze the individual learning process on the way to becoming a sustainability change agent, and that critically reflects on the process. At the end, when the projects are finished, there is a concluding seminar where the graduates present their research projects, ideally together with their practitioner partners. This also provides an opportunity for experience sharing, both between students, practitioners, and policymakers. In addition to these formats, students continuously are mentored, as I mentioned before, throughout the whole program. This happens in 2 ways, through peer learning. So students regularly exchange with each other via online communication and messenger apps, and that way also receive feedback from the whole group. And there are colloquia that provide students with a platform to present topics and progress made in their projects and to resolve both subject-specific and formal issues. So that's a short introduction to the Transformative Integration Lab. I realize it might be very much information and difficult to grasp perhaps, but I think the whole approach is very innovative and interesting, and therefore I really recommend, if you're interested, to have a look at the handbook at the end. As a second example that I want to present comes from University of Bern, and it's a Center of Development and Environment, in short, the CDE. What they do is they following a transformative research and education approach. that tackles global problems at the global scale, literally. They initiate and run partnerships with researchers and students from the global south and north. Their approach is based on several pillars that I will introduce in the following. First one is transdisciplinarity. Studies of the CDE connect people from diverse disciplinary and vocational backgrounds. For example, land use specialists in one country where goods are extracted, in that special case it was Peru, might work together with tax and trade experts in another country where these goods are imported, refined and resold, for example, Switzerland. Or another example, soil scientists are brought together with farmers in Nepal and other mountain regions worldwide to exchange insights about common challenges. This photo was actually taken in Nepal during a field trip. And on the very left, you can see Copernicus Alliance President Hans Zimmermann on the photo. The second pillar is knowledge co-production. The researchers and non-academic experts engage directly with affected communities, local policymakers and other stakeholders to co-produce knowledge. In collaborative activities like workshops, they generate knowledge that is above all applicable to the region and brings added value to the local residents. And they ensure that the resulting products, such as publications, websites, etc., are accessible to anyone who might benefit from it. The third pillar is training of change agents. A core target group of the CDE approach are students and junior researchers who are seen as the key change agents for a sustainable future. They should acquire skills such as systems thinking, anticipation of possible scenarios, working collaboratively across disciplines and cultures, the typical skills that are needed to address sustainable development and very similar to the key competencies as I described earlier in the Transformation Innovation Lab. And finally, there is the whole university approach that University of Bern is following. What does that mean? As I already emphasized, universities are often characterized by unsustainable structures and silo thinking. For example, students in economics might become an expert in their field without ever really knowing about other fields, such as ecology or alternative value systems. Many of these experts then go out and advise policymakers or even set policy themselves, which is not really sustainable. The University of Bern tries to address this problem by supporting lecturers in finding links to sustainability issues in their subject areas and incorporating them into their lesson plans. More broadly, they are encouraged to adopt a more competence-oriented and learner-centered teaching approach. All this happens top-down, for example, through compulsory sustainability courses, and at the same time, bottom-up, for example, by supporting student-led initiatives. So to sum it up, this slide gives an overview of the learnings from the University of Bern's approach, but they can also be seen as a general recommendations on how to implement ESD at universities. So from the point of view of a university, what they should do is to use a combined top-down and bottom-up policy to increase motivation and acceptance of the measures. To prioritize and sequence target groups and help them to find the link between their disciplines and sustainable development. To support researchers to team up with colleagues and foster exchange in networks, such as, for example, in the Copernicus Alliance. To offer tools, support, and professional development to help lecturers for competence-oriented training and teaching. And in more detail, to ensure support that takes place at 4 levels. In formulating competencies for sustainable development, in shifting towards a learner-centered approach that includes society. So here we are back again at transdisciplinarity, in designing learning environments, and in becoming a community of practice. So bundle, merge together people interested in that topic. And finally, to design an impact change or theory of change, which means essentially to carefully map single actions and how they take effect towards the desired outcome or not. So to become clear and conscious about the whole process. And finally, a last example. I want to present the regional centers of expertise on education for sustainable development, in short, the RCEs. This is not a single initiative, but rather a network of over 170 RCEs worldwide. You can see the map to the right. The RCE started off around 2005, together with the UN Decade on ESD, under the lead and guidance of the United Nations University. An RCE is a network of existing formal, non-formal and informal organizations in a local and regional community and context. So to make that clear, there's a global network of RCEs, and each RCE itself forms a local network. As you can see on the slide, what they are doing is to unite actors from different sectors of education and society, again with a transdisciplinary approach. You see here there might be involved universities, secondary, primary schools, but also non-formal and informal education organizations such as natural parks, museums, local governments, NGOs, etc. In practice, such an RCE can be very diverse. Some have physical offices where others don't. Some are organized like an NGO, where others are included at a university like a department, for example. An example for the latter is the RCE Graz Styria, that is based at University of Graz as a faculty center, and which I am also part of. So what we do at the RCE Graz Styria are the usual kinds of activities, I would say. We are doing academic research, transdisciplinary research. We are doing university lectures, workshops, organize excursions, also work in EU projects on different topics, all that always with a transdisciplinary approach. So this is what we are doing, and that might not be so special. But the reason why I actually want to highlight the initiative of the RCEs is that they are powerful tools to boost ESD. And from a university perspective, it can be beneficial to build competence for ESD within the university and establish connections to society in the sense of transdisciplinary research. As far as I know, there is one RCE in Spain also, RCE Galicia. So perhaps there is space for additional ones. Well, having said that, I'm already at the end of my presentation. I hope I could give some useful insights and examples of what we are doing. And on the last slide, I have collected the sources and further readings. I expect that we can share the presentation afterwards. So if you want to have a deeper look into the examples I mentioned, you find them here. Yeah, well, so having said that, thank you for your attention and happy to receive questions.
Thank you so much, Mario, for this so interesting presentation with so many examples and also practical aspects on your experience on Copernicus and also in your region. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot. So Eeva and Mario, we now start the questions and answers and debate session. We have well, at least more than half an hour to receive questions from our colleagues. At this moment, there are 74 people connected. So let's see if they they make us some questions. I have a general information. Maybe you, Mario, could give us some information about this. UNESCO is organizing, if I'm not wrong, next, I think it's next June, and a world conference on education for sustainable development. I think this is going to be a virtual conference because of the pandemic. It was expected to be in Berlin, but it's finally, if I'm not wrong, a virtual world conference. I don't know if you, Mario, have some information about this, because it could be interesting for the audience to know it.
Certainly, it is interesting also for us. I'm not involved in any organizational background activities, so also only following the public information. It's true that it was shifted from last year to this year, and it will be again virtually, but apart from that, I don't know more about it. So okay. I'm actually also curious of how it will take place and whether we can be involved in some way.
Yeah, I don't have anything new either to share, but it definitely is going to be an interesting and very, 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 very important event.
Great. Okay, so we'll try to find the website, and we'll put it now on the screen for all of you. Let's see. There is some questions. I'll try to read it. Some of them. For instance, there is one question saying, "Do you think we need a whole new sustainable curriculum in schools, support with teachers, focus and well prepared in this subject?" So, do you think we need a whole new sustainable curriculum in schools, support? What do you think? Maybe.
Yeah, if I may.
Yes, please.
Yes, I think, as I already emphasized in the presentation, sustainable development cannot be an add-on. We cannot simply add a subject or a discipline saying that goes next to all the other existing stuff. So we really need a transformation to a new kind of system. So in that sense, I would say, yes, it needs a new sustainable curriculum. Yeah, we should think sustainability between all the lines in every subject. Yeah, that of course would be a huge effort to do so, because it needs a reconceptualization of the whole curriculum and also the teaching stuff, obviously, which might be the bigger challenge even.
Yeah, I think there are many ways that need to go forward. And what do you need with a new curriculum? I think it does need to change as a whole in how to learn, but also the content. So this learning to think, I think it is very crucial, but it's not enough, because it also depends what are the values in the society and what we think. It's of course really good having the kind of skills for thinking and ways of collaborating with others, but that is still quite empty if we don't have the in-depth one. So what I would say is that if you think of universities, not taking only schools, we need, like at the moment, a curriculum or a core obligatory mandatory courses on sustainable development, but at the same time change all the kind of different subjects, and then it's a big change where you change the whole system. So I think it's kind of 3 levels, where the 2 first ones are coming first, and then the big change is something that we need to, in a way, work on together to be able to get it. But there's a lot that can be done already straight away.
Okay.
Maybe to add something to this question. I did not bring the example in my presentation. I did not know how we are in time, but maybe I can bring it here. So I think it can be effective to change the system from within. Now I'm talking from a university perspective. And we have one initiative ongoing here at University of Graz, initiated by the RC Graz jury, actually. So what we are doing is train the trainers, basically. The trainers, the teachers are important multiplicators in that sense. So we have an internal formation scheme at our university that teaches the usual skills at universities, such as presentation techniques and how to manage time management, project management, all that stuff. And there we will offer a new course dedicated to sustainable development. That includes primary skills such as office management, green office management, mobility, how you go to university and back to where you're living, what can you make there to make it more sustainable, all these very practical skills. And well, as far as to how can I change my education and courses contents. So this is what we are beginning to offer now in the summer semester for the first time, where we expect this can be an important lever to make the whole university more sustainable by teaching the teachers.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah. Can I follow on that, or are we short in time? So I would also like to raise that the one issue that is very important is, in a way, a little bit similar to yours, but even take it to the rector level, and in a way talk about that. So there's quite a lot of training at the moment, or not only training, but building joint collaborative learning of leadership between leaders of schools, not only universities, but also secondary schools. And one that Mario didn't mention that we have in Finland with the Sustainable Development Expert Panel have very much raised is the vocational schools. This is not only about like sort of academic things, but it's we train a lot of people for truck drivers and for cooks and whatever, and it is a cross-cutting thing. And so all the kind of leading staff in these organizations is just as important as the middle and supporting the students.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. There is another question. It says for Eeva, but I think it's for both of you. It says, do you have examples of universities that have integrated the sustainable development agenda into their institutional strategy that could inspire another institutions? How to balance this with competitiveness and the race of rankings? So I think it's to Eeva and to Mario, to both of you. So
maybe I start then. So I always use the Monarch University, quite a good one, which is in Australia. They have it from the campus all the way then to the practices as a whole. But I haven't been following lately what they have been doing, but I do know that they are very strong on this. Helsinki University, which is the one I graduated, and I collaborate with them quite a lot only because of the physical distance. So they are really taking up at the moment. So if you're interested in a university that is now trying to catch up, they are doing lots of nice things. Like they have this mandatory course that will be for every student, and they just told me they are so excited. There were 200 different teachers at the university who did the course together. So the teachers were 200, and it's a big effort when you take all the medical, pharmaceutics, all kinds of departments together. And they have also this Center for Sustainable Development there, which is then running all they have professors and then staff, which are then in a way bringing up the whole university. So I have these two cases. And she also asked about the competitiveness and ranking. So I would just say that it's again about who wants to be among the first. We all know that there is no going backwards with these transformations, because we are just not being able to live in a situation if we are not able to deal with the challenges, especially with natural resources. So there is no way back. So those who make the change now, they will be more competitive as well in getting students, in getting better staff to teach and so forth. But it's risky that in between, you need to be brave.
Yeah. Thanks, Eva. Maybe Mario, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I agree with what Eva is saying. Competition is certainly a problem or an issue that consumes a lot of energy and resources. A lot of brain work is lost in that sense that goes simply into competition. So probably we should even rethink the whole system of assessment and whether all these rankings make sense as they are applied. So yeah, as Eva is saying, probably the content and being future oriented should be valued higher than any ranking. It's the same as we are doing with development of countries in terms of the BIP, the GDP, which might not be the best indicator on to say what is good and what is bad. So yeah, that I think that's an even bigger topic to reinvent that whole system of assessment and competition. But certainly it's something that should be addressed as well. And at the same time, there is always the balance between scientific output and teaching, always education and teaching, and university staff have to address both of them. But in order to make career and advance scientifically, what counts is scientific output in terms of publications, which is very often a downside to education then, because you cannot do both things at the same time at the highest level. So I think that's really a problem that still has not been solved up to date.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, because there are quite a lot of questions. I'll try to summarize or read a couple. For instance, there is a question from Daniela Tilbury. She's saying, how important is it for universities and colleges to practice what they preach so that the students can live sustainability in the campus and just the classroom? And another one is from Ignasi Rodriguez Roda from the Universitat de Girona, saying, isn't better or at least easier to include the transdisciplinarity approach at earlier ages before the students arrive to the university? I don't see higher education institutions open minded and flexible enough to leave their niches and transform their well-established degrees. So that connects also with the, the primary and secondary school. So maybe one of you want to say something about this question and comment.
Yeah.
Mario, perfect.
Thanks, Daniela, for that question. Yeah, I think it's enormously important to practice what you preach, walk the talk, as we also call it, to be a role model and teach students by example. The whole university approach that I mentioned of University of Bern also goes in that direction. So clearly, sustainability should be implemented at university at all levels. So to multiply the effect. And on the question whether the education should already start earlier than university, of course, as early as possible. Now we are discussing at the level of universities, more or less. We see it from a university perspective. But of course, also primary and secondary schools have to play a role in this. Also parents. So we need to educate society as a whole. And I think that brings us back to the transdisciplinary approach, including society in education and research. So I think this is where we can close the gap and educate all levels of society and all age groups at the same time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also very much agree with Mario's answers, especially the role model. I mean, I don't think this is any special from anything else, that you also at home you need to do that you need to act the way that you want your children to act. But about this early education, so I see very much a difference There are different schools, but I mean, with schools, how you think. So I always emphasize learning much more than education, because education is more like top down, and I think the learning is very important. And the difficulty is actually the learning to learn, so that actually we don't know yet what we need to know, and we don't know yet how we can solve different kind of issues, or how can we move forward. So a very important issue is that we learn together the tools how to change. And here we come very close to transdisciplinarity and these projects that I showed you at the end, where you are all learning ways how to tackle certain issues, and learning the ways how something can be, for example, studied also. So yeah, very crucial. And then it's not only parents teaching children. I think it's actually even stronger the other way around, and that's why it's very actually very influential. If you are able to catch the children and being able to learn with them, that they then learn or teach or take the messages back to their parents and their connections there, because it's not enough that only the new generation is changing, even though I think that is really crucial, and I think it's going to be much easier for them, but the adult population, so I think the youth is also a way to reach our generation or grandchildren that they challenge us.
Yeah, thank you. So from my point of view, it's really difficult to change on this this classical way of doing. If I'm thinking, for instance, on a university, from the very much niche, sectorial perspective from a sector, and also working very much on the competitiveness, let's say, approach to this changing. To this transdisciplinarity, as you mentioned, intersectorial and cooperative, and that's from my point of view, it seems to be that universities are still organized at the old way, but trying to add, let's say, something extra with this cooperation and transdisciplinarity approach, which is not the best way, because we are trying to transform big institutions in a classical way towards something very different. So at this moment, we are just, let's say, putting extra things like extra curriculum, extra activities, and the thing is that if for instance, if we take climate change, it's so we need to go so fast that it's not a matter of just promoting slow by slow changes. We need to change rapidly because climate change in this topic is changing so fast. So I don't know. What do you think about this? About this, this classical conception towards and this need to change rapidly from university point of view.
Yeah, if I start and then Mario continues. So I think the university's role is really to serve the society, and so in a way, and so does the science policy. And the science policy is also changing at the moment, and of course that could take stronger path. Science policy, if you take, for example, Horizon Europe that is now starting, it's very difficult to get funding if you are really not doing transdisciplinary research. Of course, there is also those calls, but it's very strongly that type of research that is pulling there. The other thing is this transdisciplinary research and also the teaching curricula, that you work together with communities, you work together with the industry, and really try to base on that. And I wanted to raise in my presentation that the industry, it's not always, there's this contraception that all industry and business is bad. there's a lot of movement going on there, and to be able to do that together is one way to be able to make things go faster. And yeah, so I think that's it. And I would not like to see the universities being the last ones coming in, because there will definitely be other universities that will then pass those that are not picking up the situation. Business is going very fast because they don't have any big institutions behind them. They do exactly what they want, and that's why the ones that are really now on core, they are moving very fast, much faster than the government.
Yeah. Mario, maybe do you want to add something?
Yeah, of course, there's a constant time pressure in achieving sustainable goals, and probably we are not fast enough, but at the end, the systems are how they are. It has very much to do with human psychologically, I think also. We know from experience that top-down approaches might be quicker, but they are not accepted in the end. Bottom-up approaches might be more effective in the long run, but they take time. So we are somehow in the gap in between these two, and we need both of them, as I also said in my presentation. So yeah, it needs to start from all sides, which can be the only solution at the end, I guess. And some ideas simply need their time to come. I can give a small example from our university again. About 20 years ago, there was the idea to introduce a basic module at University of Graz dedicated to sustainable development. So one introductory course for all students that would enter our university, independently from what discipline they would be studying. And well, at that time, around 2000, it was not ready. The time wasn't ready. The acting people, directorate was not ready for it, so it did not get implemented. And last year we started it. So a good idea that it was then, a good idea that it is now, took some time to take off at the end. So that's a small anecdote of probably we cannot simply push processes too much, and some processes need time, well knowing that we don't have this time, but that's somehow the unresolved issue here.
Yeah, thank you very much. There is another question, very much focusing on Copernicus. So Mario, for you, it says, does the Copernicus Alliance work with COIL, that's Collaborative Online International Learning methodology in ESD courses, to have students collaboratively work on topics? Or are there any interinstitutional type of collaborative learning between the institutions of the Alliance where students collaborate? You mentioned some things about this, but maybe you want to...
Yeah, we don't do specifically something in the direction of COIL, but of course what we do is fostering the exchange of our members. It's more about bringing the members together and sharing what they are doing among each other, and establish communities of practice and working groups. So the initiatives are going on at the universities and at our members' institutions, and we encourage them to share them and foster exchange. So it is more that we are acting as multipliers of ongoing initiatives, and at the same time, of course, raise our ideas and try to promote them in the network. Also by acting as a role model, and for example, with the annual conferences that we are doing, we try to be innovative in that sense. Our annual conference in 2019 that was fully done online was somehow a pioneer work in that sense, where it was not so common as it is now to have these online conferences. We also provided guidelines after this conference that are available on our website. So a small booklet of how to organize online conferences. So we are keen to experiment, be innovative, and also share our experiences with anybody at the end.
Okay, thank you very much. There is another question from Jose Antonio Gordillo. It says, do you think we can match local knowledge, for example, from aborigines or minorities, with nowadays sustainable education approach? I think this maybe Eva or even Mario want to say something about this local knowledge.
I think that's really crucial that we take that, and when sustainable development issues started to come up again, and they was talking about the indigenous communities, it was very much seen that they are not necessarily sustainable, but more and more we are coming back to the fact that in broader sense the sustainability is the basis for their cultures is very strongly based in the sustainability. And then it's important not to think about only the indigenous but also the local communities as a whole, that we have lots and lots of examples where that is. And then the second thing is that that's the way where you actually do a lot of learning and education is in these communities that are closest to us as well. And a new concept which is called the active citizenship is a very important way of acting, and that's where the learning takes place as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Maybe Mario?
Yes, I think clearly it's important to include local knowledge. I think here we are back at the idea of the RCEs. This is very much what they are aiming for, translating sustainable development to a regional and local context. That was the original ideas actually to fund these RCEs. Because I think sustainability is also very much a cultural thing, and it might not be the same or meaning the same for people on different cultures and continents. So it has to be adapted to the local context. And yeah, I think the RCE network does exactly that, to bring the idea of sustainable development to local contexts, but also bring it back to the global community. So it goes in both directions. Therefore, these RCEs also have annual conferences where they exchange on a global level. So this is the linking point between local regional communities and the global community.
Yeah, thank you very much to both of you. And Jose Antonio Gordillo is asking another question, an interesting one. It's a little long, but I'll try to read it. He says, we have a new exhibition in Norrbottens Museum about sustainability called We Are a Planet. That's the name of the exhibition. In our experience, one key point is the perception that the young people have about what is sustainability. We have to fight so much against the, let's say, apocalypse perspective. For example, climate change is so big problem, we cannot do anything relevant individually. We work a lot giving them tools and resources to think about this topic in a very positive way as a unique change to create and share new science and technology-based solutions. What do you think about this, let's say, pessimistic trend, about this apocalypse, let's say, perspective, for instance, about climate change? That's clearly a question or a comment for both of you. I don't know who wants to start.
Well,
Eva, please.
Well, I think the key message is to see that even though the challenges are really apocalyptic, it has been scientifically in a way estimated that if we do things right, it is still possible to change the direction and come on paths that take us forward to sustainability. And I think that the youth as a whole, where I don't put pressure on them, but rather say that when the generations, they are actually changing really fast. If we think that 20 years is not such a long time, if someone is 15, in 3 years' time, he is one of the decision makers. So in a way, there is hope, and otherwise there wouldn't be so many people in the world who are working on this if we wouldn't believe in that there is another plan. But there is something I really would like to share. And that is the issue that what is most important is that the youth, that they work together, that they are not at home alone and get the apocalyptic thinking, but that they come together and actually they make things together against it, or make these positive moves together, whatever, as long as they are not killing and being violent. It is really important that they are together, that there is science that shows that that one really helps with the angst that they are having. So I don't know if it helped at all.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe Mario?
Yeah, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of getting pessimistic with all the negative trends that we are facing. At the same time, I think it still makes a difference whether climate change will end up with 1.5 degrees or 2 or 4. There's a difference in between. And whatever we do to reduce the negative outcomes of these trends can help us for a positive future. So while we might turn to be pessimistic at some point, we still should do our best to combat these challenges the best we can, because there's not really an alternative. We cannot simply wait for the apocalypse, right? So I guess, yes, it's there somehow, but we still have to fight it and do our best.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe, I don't know if you agree on this, maybe it's one of, let's say, positive outcomes of the pandemic is that we can really solve, or we are in a way of solving the pandemic altogether, with, of course, with science, technology, and with the effort from everybody, from so many different countries and people. So that could be a positive message for everybody, to say, if we apply science, if we think all together, if we act in a positive way, we can solve really let's say a big problem as humanity. That could be a positive in that way of trying to be positive and to show to everybody that things can be changed if we work in a good direction, and if we let's say exploit science and technology possibilities.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think at some point it was very much discussed that, oh, suddenly the people are not flying anymore and we save some CO2. That's not the point. The key point in the lessons learned is that, first of all, we can do things, we can work rationally and fight against big kind of crises. And the second thing is that we need to work in a way on a global level, that we need each other and it is worthwhile, and also science is very important. Of course, it very much varies in different parts of the world. But one of the negative things that we have also learned, and we need to maybe understand, is how easily we go back to this inequality also between countries, how we have been fighting for the vaccines, for example. It's quite alarming. But anyway, if people in developing countries are not getting the vaccines, everyone in the world is under threat, and it's similar to sustainability in general. So I actually agree with the person's point.
Right.
Yeah, I think the pandemic is a huge experiment in that sense that we are witnessing at the moment. We are confronted with a rapid change. We see how fast things that are taken for granted since a long time can change in terms of our individual rights, and our whole life changes quickly. So that is interesting to see. At the same time, every challenge is different. Climate change is much slower in its outcomes and what it implies. So you cannot really compare one to the other, but still we might take some good experiences and knowledge from mastering the pandemic crisis that we might be able to apply positively to other challenges that will come up.
Yeah. Okay. So if you agree, I would like to finish with there is a more, I would say, let's say, personal question to both of you, and maybe we can finish with this one. It says, Mario and Eeva, would you be happy to share your personal motivation, why you involved in projects leading towards transformation towards sustainable development? So it's more related with your personal motivation on this subject.
I think it is, I mean, part of the whole story. I'm a marine biologist from background, but I, in a very early stage, realized that to be able to in a way, for example, safeguard our environmental commons and biodiversity, you need to take into account the whole society, how we work. And it's also, I must say, it is very interesting because it's very topical, and it is, I see that I have the intuition that this is something that is very strongly moving and moving very fast at the moment in the society. And I sleep better if I do this, even though I get sometimes some apocalyptical nightmares.
Thank you, Eeva. Mario, what's your personal feelings?
Yeah, I ever since have been quite green from my mentality, in the sense that environment is above all. You know, these diagrams. I think Eeva presented the diagram by Kate Raworth, if I'm correct. Donut economy and all these models that place environment as the most important resource that we have, and economy and all the rest are happening inside these basic resources. So that ever since was the primary thing for me to protect and well, to engage and work towards or sustainable development is only the logical consequence of to address that, because things are not going so well, and it's clear that we need to make something different. So this is my personal motivation behind it, to contribute my part, because at the end everybody can contribute with their part, even though there might be big systems above our individual heads, and politics decide not always what they are supposed for and what they are voted for, actually. But still, it's what we can do as individuals. And as Eeva says, I can sleep better in that sense as well, knowing that I do my part.
Yeah, thank you very much. I like very much your background and your experiences, because I don't know if you agree. You combine very well, you know, let's more local motivations or local activities, each of you in your institutions, let's say, with this international perspective, trying to think globally and act locally, as this aphorism says. No? So it's really nice to hear from you, because you are trying always to combine the two aspects, the two phenomena, the local one, because we need to think about local problems and try to solve them, but also collaborate at the international level with other colleagues, other institutions, to try to work together with this cooperation perspective. So thank you very much for your inspiring conversation, for your presentations. Thanks, Eeva Furman. Thanks, Mario Diethart. Thanks so much for your presentations today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks
for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Mario. So just a couple of closing remarks. So thank you very much to all of you for attending the event. It has been a fruitful session, I think. Remember that you can contact directly to the speakers via email in case you have more questions, and in case you want or you just wish to know more about the project they presented. Just for your information, next session is scheduled for Wednesday at the same time, the morning session, and we'll cover the topic of aligning science and society. You can see the link provided in the chat section for this session on next Wednesday. So we hope you can join us again on next Wednesday. So I give the floor to Professor Josep Calvo, Vice Rector of Strategic Projects of the Universitat de Girona. Thank you so much, Josep. The floor is yours.
Thank you, José María. I'm afraid that I don't have so much to add after these two excellent presentations by Eeva and Mario, and the interesting discussion that followed them. I've really enjoyed them. The ideas, suggestions, and topics that have been covered are really inspiring and challenging indeed. Will we, all of us, be able to think about them and apply some of them in our daily life? Will we change, even if slightly, our approach to our work tasks, taking into consideration the Sustainable Development Goals? We have heard about the planetary boundaries, and we have learned that these boundaries are both physical, environmental, and also social and economic. We have seen that in order to reach the SDGs, many challenges need to be addressed, and that the way to address them must be different from what we have been doing so far. We must transform minds and methods. Moreover, transformation must include the whole society, so it must start from the education of the youngest and the involvement of local communities. Another aspect that it's been stressed is the need for connecting different knowledges from different areas of science and technology. The need to take different perspectives, and even the need for transdisciplinarity. Many of us attending this session are members of the academia, and this means that we are, in one hand, building new knowledge with our research, and on the other hand, educating the generations that will manage our world in the coming future. So I would say that our responsibility is huge, as well as the responsibility of the rest of society, this including companies and businesses, politicians, administrators, and the whole society too. These four elements, economy, policy, knowledge, people at large, are the essentials that must interact, relate to each other, work together for a real innovative processes to take place. Indeed, the connection among these four elements is a necessary condition for addressing SDGs challenges. But it is not sufficient, I'm afraid. We also need to transform ourselves. We need to educate ourselves towards sustainable development. We need to innovate. This is partially what we at the University of Girona are trying to reach with our strategy on the sum of intelligences, and in particular with our sectoral hubs. This, changing our minds, training the trainers in a different way, is what we have tried to inspire today with the first two talks of the series of seminars organized by the University of Girona, along with the Global University Network for Innovation. I'd like to think that you have enjoyed as much as I've done. If so, don't miss the rest of the talks that we will be online this week and next week. Go to the program, register, and get your free link to the online seminars. Again, thank you, Eeva. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, José María. Thank you also to all of you who are behind the scenes. And of course, thank you to all attendees. See you at the next seminar. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.